Good morning, everybody. Hope you had a great weekend. Today we're going to work on rotations around the origin 90 degrees clockwise and 90 degrees counterclockwise. These are pretty difficult overall. We'll do a lot of practice with this, so if you don't get it after today, don't worry. We'll keep practicing, and of course, make sure you're asking those questions on that Google Doc for questions that's attached to Google Classroom. And if those answers aren't helping, be sure to email me and we'll set up a video chat and I'll try helping you through that. So we're going to look at example 2 here. It says the vertices of a triangle are given here, and we're going to rotate the triangle 90 degrees clockwise about the origin. What are the coordinates of the image? So I'm going to go ahead and graph that. Alright, so I've gone ahead and graphed J, K, and L, as you can see here, and now I want to rotate it 90 degrees clockwise about the origin. So if we look at this shape, I want to move it 90 degrees clockwise. So I'm going to move these two. If I was going 90 degrees clockwise, now remember thinking about a clock, if you're starting at 12, 90 degrees would be right here. That would be 90 degrees clockwise. So if I was taking this point here, if I was going 90 degrees clockwise, it should wind up down here in quadrant 4. K should wind up in quadrant 4 and L should wind up over here. Now what you got to remember is you're turning the shape. Rotation is a turn. So what I'm going to show you here is I'm going to rotate the graph. Now, it's going to look like I'm going 90 degrees in the other direction, but I'll show you why in a second. So I'll move it 90 degrees in that direction. If we look at it here, we'll see our points that are given to us. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lock them with the graph so that when I move it back, we'll see our new point. So I'm going to move it back now. And there we go. There is our J prime, K prime, and L prime. So I've gone ahead and connected the dots here, and so J rotated right here, so this would be J prime, and that's at 2, -1. So J prime we'll have here, it's 2, -1. I'm getting better at writing with this notepad here. Hopefully I'll get better by the time we're done with this little distance learning experiment. K prime is over here now. You'll see K rotated to down here. So K prime. K prime is at 2, -4. And then we have finally L prime is over here. And that's at -3, -1. It should be right there, the point. It's a little bit off because the graph isn't completely square, but it's -3, -1, and that is L prime. Alright, now I've gone and I've copy and pasted the original, the pre-image points, right next to the image point. So there's the regular one, and here's our new image after a rotation 90 degrees clockwise. What I want you to do now, and I hope that you do this, is I want you to pause the video, and I want you to try to see if you can make a connection for how J becomes J prime with the X and Y values. So just pause it, and when you're ready, and if you have a good guess, hit the play button and we'll start again. Okay, so I hope that you made a guess, and we'll see how accurate your guess is here. So these are all of our x's, these are all of our y's. This is our x primes, our y primes. So what happens here is a 90-degree rotation clockwise about the origin. So clockwise, remember, as we said, if you're at 12 o'clock on a clock, you're going to the right, and 90 degrees would be right there. So we're going to the right for clockwise. So if you look at xy, think of it this way. You're taking the x and you're putting it after the y. Okay, so you're taking the x, moving after y. And since the x is what you're moving, you make that the opposite. So our new value is going to become y and the opposite of x. It's just a trick for 90 degrees clockwise. If you remember, it helps a lot when you're finding new points. So again, I'll say it one more time. Since we're going 90 degrees clockwise, we're moving our x to the right, because clockwise is to the right, so we're going to move our x to the right after the y. And since we're moving the x becomes opposite, so it becomes y, the opposite of x. So 1, 2, the 1 goes after the 2, Since the 1 moved, it becomes opposite to 2, -1. 4 goes into -4 after the 2. 2, -4, 1 becomes the opposite to -3, -1. So that is our rotation 90 degrees clockwise about the origin, and these are the coordinates of our image. So you'll notice that these two shapes are still congruent because any rotation, the pre-image and the images are congruent. So remember that's important for when we're doing these types of transformations. So now we will go to the next example. Alright, so I've gone ahead to the next example and I already graphed our triangle QRS. So if you want a second to go ahead and do that, if you did print out the notes and you want a second to graph it, go ahead and pause the video. When you're ready for the next part, just resume. So if you're ready, we're going to rotate this triangle 90 degrees counterclockwise about the origin. So if we're going counterclockwise, counterclockwise is the opposite way of a clock, so if I'm at 12 o'clock here, counterclockwise would be the opposite way a clock goes, which means we go to the left. So I want to be here. So I'm going to the left 90 degrees. So Q over here, right now is in quadrant 1. When I'm finished, it should be over here in quadrant 2. R and S are both on the x-axis, so if I go 90 degrees counterclockwise, they should wind up on the y-axis up here, I bet. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rotate my graph, and just like last time, I'm going to rotate it so that looks like I'm going to be moving it 90 degrees in the other direction, but in fact, rotating it so that these points are going to wind up on this graph. So I'm going to go ahead and group these now. Now, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to do this every time, so we'll learn the trick to how we use the x and y values to find our new coordinates, but you can always just turn your paper. So if you graph it, and then you turn your paper in and think about where the coordinates would be if that graph was right side up, just kind of how we just did right now, that'd be a good way to also find the coordinates if you forgot the rule. So now I'm going to go ahead and draw Q prime, R prime, and S prime on the triangle. Alright, so you'll notice that I've now graphed Q prime, R prime, and S prime, and I've added in the lines. So you'll notice that Q prime is now in quadrant 2, and R prime and S prime are on the y-axis. So we'll go ahead and label our points. I've also written our values of the pre-image over here. So Q prime is -5, 4. -5, 4. R prime is at 0, 4. And S prime is at 0, 1. Alright, so again I'm going to ask you, pause the video and try to see if you can think of the rule before I say it, okay? How can I get to Q prime before I go ahead and say it? So look at the x, y values. Remember we have, this is x, and this is y. Look at those values, see how they changed around, and see if you can come up with a rule. So pause the video and start it up when you think you have a guess. And if you are ready to go, so we'll talk about it. So 4, 5 became -5, 4. So remember, this is 90 degrees counterclockwise about the origin. So counterclockwise is going to the left. So it's like we're taking the y value and putting it before the x. We're taking y and moving it to the left. When it was 90 degrees clockwise, we took x and went to the right. Now we're taking y and going to the left. So the y value is becoming negative and going first. So we're taking the y and moving it before. 5 goes before the 4, becomes -5, 4. 0, well, 0, the opposite of 0 is 0, so it's going to go first, but it's still going to be 0. So 0, 4 is our new point, and the same here again. 0 goes in front, the opposite of 0 is 0, so 0, 1 is going to be S prime. So the rule is xy becomes the opposite of y, and then x. Now, obviously, this opposite of y, it's in the x position, so it's your new x value. It's just the original y value goes first, it becomes the opposite, and now that's your new x value. And this is your new y value. I know it looks a little bit confusing, but that's just kind of the trick to getting the values without turning the graph every single time and writing down new coordinates. So for B, it says, are the images congruent? Explain. Well, are these images congruent? What does congruent mean? Congruent means the same size and shape. Are these the same size and shape? They are. They might not look it. It looks a little smaller, this one, but they are. They're the same size. This is 1, 2, 3 away, 1, 2, 3 away. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they're the same exact shape. We did the Pythagorean theorem, so you know that makes this side length the same if A and B are the same. So the triangles are congruent, and the explanation is because they're the same size and shape. So that's all I'm going to have you guys do today. Just example 2 and example 3. I'm rotating the triangle 90 degrees clockwise was example 2, and example 3 was counterclockwise. So write down these rules. If you haven't done so yet, xy becomes y negative x. Write that down. That's going to be good for you for your assignment that you're going to do in just a second. And then 90 degrees counterclockwise, xy becomes the opposite y, x. So write those rules down, try out the assignment, good luck, and if you have any questions, be sure to write them in the Google Doc. If my answer there isn't sufficient, make sure you email me and request an online meeting of sorts. Alright guys, good luck today, and let me know if you need any help.